Good afternoon. We're doing it live. Is it afternoon yet? Let's see. It's still morning. So we're doing it live this morning. And I am the interim president of America. My name is Brian Nadeau. I'm the interim president of America. And the reason I'm the interim president of America is because America doesn't have a president. The United States has a president called Donald Trump right now. But that's a completely different organization than America. And it's actually a hostile organization to the people in America. And it's not because he's a Republican or a Democrat. We'll go into more of that later. But the American people themselves do not have representation and do not have a government. The American people do not have a government that represents the American people. I live in a town in Southern California that was founded in the 1800s, and it's a beautiful little town in its original form. But what's happened is it's controlled by a cult. It's actually controlled by an actual cult. So the town that I live in is controlled by a cult, and the town that you live in is probably controlled by the same cult. And it's not what you would think. I would tell you that I can tell you the main gist of it, and it's actually very. I didn't even like talking about it, to be honest with you. It's not a topic that I like discussing, but the government's run by a gay cult. That's the pattern. Is that the government's the United States has a network that controls the state and local governments that are all run by gay cults. That's actually what it is. So that's what it is. That's what it is. And they control the police. They control the city government. And so in every city, they're going to put a gay clique in charge of the government. And that's why everything's diverse, and that's why everything's race mixed, and that's why everything's anti-Christ, and that's why everything is the way it is, and that's why it's ugly, and that's why the people are sick, and that's why you can't change it. See, because it's run by a clique. It's literally run by a gay cult. That's literally what it is. That likes to dress up little kids with they like to dress up little boys with makeup and do pageants. And so that's what runs my city. And it's not just my city. My city was like the last one to become like this in a long line of cities. But that's what runs my city now. And it's increased over the years. It's because it wasn't like this. It's become like this over I would say the last 10 years. It's become more and more like this. But this is the pattern that runs the United States and its proxies in Sacramento and then the local governments. It's run by a gay cult. That's what it is. So we need to have our own government with our own people, with our own program. And so what my program is to do is through organizing and activism and voting, we are going to take back the government for ourselves. So the first thing you have to understand is when people talk about our, right? People like to say the word our and we, we need to do this and we need to do that. And this we includes a bunch of people that aren't you and I, right? It's a bunch of foreigners it's a bunch of people that immigrated here from some foreign country that's completely alien to us, with foreign languages and foreign cultures and completely alien cultures to America, right? Because Americans come from Europe, right? Americans don't come from anywhere else but Europe. And not all people from Europe are Americans, okay? Because if you don't believe in the Enlightenment principles, you can't be an American. Like if you don't believe in free speech, you're not an American. If you don't believe in the right to self-defense, you're not an American. So just being from Europe doesn't make you an American. But all Americans are from Europe. That's where our culture comes from. It comes from Europe. It comes from Christianity. It comes from the continental racial structure of Europe, and from Athens is where we get our system of government. So it doesn't come from anywhere else. And so but now under the U.S. government, which was the U.S. government, the establishment of the U.S. government was a complete hoax from the beginning. And I believe in the Enlightenment. And I agree with many things that Thomas Jefferson said and the other Enlightenment writers. So because I believe in the light. See, I believe in enlightenment. You see, I'm for enlightenment and the light. See, I worship the light, or as far as like a metaphor. Metaphorically, I worship the light metaphorically. And so if you don't do that, see, that's why I believe in free speech. That's why I believe in self-defense. That's why I believe people have the right to own property. And people have a right to their own conscience because I worship the light. But so in America, that's not our system of government anymore. From what I can tell, is the establishment of the U.S. government itself was the end of the Enlightenment. It didn't project the Enlightenment into the future. It actually cut off the Enlightenment and brought in a new order. And this new order that spread across the United States is literally a gay cult. That's what it is. That's what runs your state government. That's what runs your local government. That's what runs my local government. And my local government wasn't like this 10 years ago. There were pockets of this around, but now it's literally the model of government of all the cities, little towns. No matter where you are, you're not going to be able to escape it because this is where the money is backing. And so what they've decided is that the way they're going to control the populations of America is through gay cults. So it's cults of gay men that run the government with feminists. That's basically what it is. It's cult. It's literally a cult of that. That's what it is. They're in the churches. They're in the Jewish synagogues. They're in everything. But they're in the government and they're in the police department. They're running the police department. They're in the unions. This is the model of control. This is the model of control. So that's their system, but it's not our system. You see, we're the Americans. That's not us. We're not. There's no system that was established by our European ancestors that said you're going to be ruled by gay cults. See, that wasn't part of the thing. So, it actually got me thinking of this thing I was watching on YouTube about contract law. And that when you write a contract, you should put in there a provision that says, see, the contract is good unless you violate the contract, and then I'm completely dissolved of the contract, right? Well, the contract has been dissolved because the American people no longer have a government that is represented by the original group. See, that's no longer being represented. They put something else in place of it, and they're still calling it "quote unquote" America or the USA, and it's not. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to set up voting leagues, but we're not just doing voting. See, it's not good enough to just do voting. Voting is good because then you can use numbers to take power. Okay, so the only benefit of voting, from what I can tell at this point, as far as an organizing principle, is to organize around this concept of voting in order to vote your way into power. And then once you get into power, you purge all of the garbage and all of the cults and the cliques that have taken over and that they're doing this thing. So yeah, you have to understand is that this civilization, Southern California, has been destroyed. There's still areas where it's rich, and those areas you would say, well, it's nice here because it's rich. Yeah, and that's the only thing that's nice about it, is that it still has wealth. But the culture is terrible. And those wealthy areas are surrounded by traffic and dirt and mental illness and perversion and crime and homelessness and poverty. So the thing is that's what I'm saying. And it continues on this way because it's run by gay cults. That's what the government is run by. It's run by gay cults, and they're in the police department. They're in the unions, and it's not a subject I really like to talk about. But I'm just telling you, this is what it is, and so this is why it doesn't represent anybody else but that group. And so what they do is they implement their agenda, which is the thing, and then they call that the community, right? So everyone has to submit to this communal system that's run by a gay cult. Okay. So now let me give an example. For years, we had a beauty pageant. For years, we had a beauty pageant where young girls would do a beauty pageant. And so, and I think so. So now let me talk. Now, why are beauty pageants important? Why would a beauty pageant be important to a society? Okay, a beauty pageant would be important to a society that wants to survive because you have all these young, pretty girls, and they would like to get married and they would like to have a family, right? And so, if you live in a community and you put on a beauty pageant, then all the pretty girls can be seen by all the young guys that are, they want to start a family, they want a wife and they want a family, and then this helps everyone to perpetuate the society, right? Now, let me tell you. Now let's take the Donald Trump model or the whatever model. Well, his idea was, oh, you've got all these young girls, and I can exploit them and use them for my beauty pageant, and then I will traffic them to other people, and I'll be involved in a big human trafficking thing for sex trafficking. See, that's a way of perverting what would otherwise be a good idea for women. But so now, because we live in this type of society, it's not just the Donald Trumps that pervert what would otherwise be a really cool idea, which is a beauty pageant. But it's literally, for instance, in my town now, we have a gay cult that's involved in the beauty pageant, and so they're like they literally want to be the beauty queens, and so it's old men with teenage boys dressing them up and makeup, and it's all run through channels that are directly connected to the police department and the city. You see, it's directly connected. Like you have old men playing with teenage boys and wearing makeup and doing all kinds of homosexual, like comedy and like what do you call it? Like what do you like when you use homosexual? Like, oh, we love hot, and they like have their hot dogs, and this is supposed to be a beauty pageant for girls. See, it's a good idea to have a beauty pageant for young girls and young women so that they can be seen in the society and they can continue the social system, because you want young girls to get married and have a family and do these are all things that they want to do, right? But instead you have a gay cult that takes over the beauty pageant and makes it about themselves. And this is what runs the city, but it's not just this. This is just one part of it. You have to understand, this is the whole government system from top to bottom. This is JD Vance. This is the town I live in. From the top to the bottom, this is how it's run. This is how it's run. It doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republicans. This is how it's run. And so what I'm saying is, as Americans, we need to organize our own voting leagues from the local level to the federal level, local level, state level, and federal level. And we are going to vote these people out of power, and we're going to set up our own clique, our own cult, our own cult. And we will expel all these other cults out of power. And we're going to have our own cult based on the logos and based on the light, which is our ancestral inheritance. You see, we're the Americans. We came from Europe. We have this culture of enlightenment, and it's not a gay cult run by unions connected to the Pope or these other mafia groups. You see, so this has got to come to an end, and it is coming to an end. Just look at what's happening with the war in Iran. Okay, Donald Trump says he's won the war in Iran 6 million times since March already. But they have all the missiles. He says they destroyed all their missiles. Oh yeah, you destroyed all their missiles. Why they keep shooting at you? If you destroyed all their missiles, why do they keep shooting at you? Okay, so I'm telling you, this whole system, which is run by gay cults from Washington D.C. to your state government to your local government, that doesn't mean everybody that's in it is gay, but you have to submit to these people because they run the government, and it doesn't. The elections. Well, there was a time probably in America where elections actually did kind of mean something, a little bit at least, but now it doesn't really, because that cult controls both parties, and maybe one more than the other a little bit or here or there. But overall, they're the ones they have the macro power group with all the money and all the power behind them pushing it. So they'll take over a little town, a little small town, and they will implement their thing. They'll make it look like a gay cult. What used to be a cute, charming little town founded by Americans, that believed in the Enlightenment and believed in God. Now it's a gate. Now it's that little town is now an epicenter of the gay cult, and so that they push their thing, and their thing is always the same. It's homosexuals with children, and indoctrinating children into their grooming children into their culture, and it's also completely has to do with race mixing. You have to have it's mostly white women with it's like gays running white women with black men and Hispanics. It's in other words, you have to always race mix everything. Like that's their cult. That's their cult. Well, that's their cult, but that's not my culture. See, let me tell you this one more time. My culture comes from Europe. But see, now the other people don't really like, when you get a large block of other racial groups that come in, they don't do this stuff. It's all being done through these channels which have taken over and are impersonating Americans. So the idea is we need activism, and so we need organization, activism, and voting. And what we're going to do is we're going to organize into voting groups in our areas, and we're going to start taking back territory sector by sector by sector. And every time we take back a sector, we don't give it up without a fight. And we get their police chiefs out, we get their unions out, we take over the government, and we purge it of all their stuff so that there's nothing left. See, Donald Trump didn't do that. Donald Trump 2016 is not Donald Trump 2024. Let's just put it that way. Donald Trump 2016 is not Donald Trump 2024. It's not even the same person. Doesn't look the same. He doesn't sound the same. He doesn't do anything the same. He's a failed person. He's a failed human being that's totally capitulated to the satanic cult. So what we're going to do is at every single level, whether if we get a small town, so the idea is we're going to organize, and we're going to vote, and we're going to grab a small town, right? So we grab a small town, and then all the police unions in that small town and all the workers unions that are connected to the government, they all get demolished. They get routed. They get completely dissolved so that they don't operate. And that the only union, or if you're going to have a union operating in the group, it'll only be our union. That's based on our system, that comes from Europe and comes from Athens and comes from our ideology and our people. So it's going to be our people and our ideology and our system that we got through our forefathers, who came from the Enlightenment and from Athens and through the and into America. See, we're going to replace it with that, and so we're going to do that through voting. Now, are we going to grab a federal election right away? Probably not. Can we grab a little town? Can we grab a state? Is there a state we can grab? Because you want to grab that state, and then you want to purge it all, and then you want to consolidate power. And when I mean purge it all, I mean no one from this cult is going to be allowed. So if you're from, let's say this cult runs the FBI, right? The Anti-Defamation League and some of these weird unions that are connected to the Pope. They're like these gay cults. They run parts of the FBI, right? Or they run parts of this or that. So that's a little tougher because those entities have the power of Washington, D.C. behind them, and they literally have a license to kill. Look at what they did to Charlie Kirk. Look at what they did to Charlie Kirk, right? But they're weakening in power too. They're weakening in power. They're weakening in power, and that's obviously by the fact that they can't defeat Iran in a war, and they can't defeat Russia in a war, and they probably can't defeat China in a war. But so yet we the Americans are still submitting to them. See, we lost a long time ago, and so we keep submitting to them. And so what my proposition is, as the interim president of America, the interim president. See, I'm the interim president. I don't have to be the president forever. We can have somebody else be the president, but we have to form an organization based on our race and our religion and our philosophy, which is American, which comes from it comes through the whole line that came, like I'm out here in California. Okay, and my family comes from the Midwest farms, and also from the Northeast, and the Northeast people, and also from Canada. That's how Northeast I'm from. Vermont, Massachusetts, Canada, French Canada, NATO. But we came from Europe, right? And the Europeans came from Europe. And of course, that also goes back down into the Mediterranean and into Phoenicia and into Egypt and to Athens and to so this is our we have a continual line of culture, race, culture coming out of these areas, and then we have a philosophy that we have adopted over thousands of years, which is just being erased by gay cults that are just putting in place literally the worst possible type of civilization that could ever be imagined. You got to understand, Athenian philosophy is about idealism. What is the perfect thing? What is the perfect thing? Is having your town run by gay cults the perfect thing? No, it's the worst thing. It's the worst possible thing. So there's nothing worse than what we have now. And so it can only get better. You literally have nothing to lose. So we're not Democrats and we're not Republicans. We're our own voting group. We're organizing, we're activating, we're active on, we're organizing, we're getting involved in activism, and the activism should include getting other people who are like us to join our group and vote for our guys so that we get in power and then we get rid of this disgusting cult. It's a cult network. It's not even a democracy in the fact that, like, you think, well, it's a democracy and that all these other people are voting. No, it's literally just a small group of people getting their own guys in. That's what runs it now. Like, the US is run from top to bottom to a small group of people with a lot of money getting their guys in. Well, we may not have a lot of money compared to them, but we can still just get our guys in if we have enough votes. And then once we have enough votes and we get in, and then we control the voting system. So the voting system is designed the way we want it to be, and we don't capitulate. See, like, for instance, I remember when this idea, like, that the Republicans have for decades is, well, we lost the election, and so we're going to hand it over to Barack Obama or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or whatever. You're an idiot. So you don't really care about your future. You don't really care about your survival. You're willing to capitulate to these ridiculous cults. You're stupid, right? You should never have that mentality that, oh, well, I guess we lost the election, and so now we're just going to let them, destroy everything. No, we're going to do whatever we can within the law to protect ourselves. We're going to do whatever we can within the law to protect ourselves. We're going to do everything we can within the law to organize ourselves and to protect ourselves and to expel them from our midst. See, some of these people like to say that we're the enemy. You're the enemy because you're white, or you're the enemy because you love Jesus Christ, the Word of God. I call it the Word of God, the light, the light. I don't believe that Jesus Christ was a human being that was murdered by Romans. I believe it's the light being murdered, the logos being murdered, the key being murdered. The key is murdered, right? That's what I believe it is. So, because I'm an Enlightenment person, I believe in the Enlightenment. That's where my heritage comes from. So, but these other people are not. And some people that are, so one of the last refuges, is that one of the last refuges of this cult that runs everything is by putting white guys in charge. So you look at a guy like JD Vance, for instance, right? He's a white guy like you. That's the whole design of this group. He's a white guy like you, and he's a race mixer, and he works for a homosexual. You see what I mean? So it's like, when you see, well, who am I voting for? I'm voting for the white guy that sounds good. He says all the right things, and he's white like I. See, this is how they keep tricking you. And so the whole thing, literally the whole Republican Party and Democrat Party, is run by a gay cult on both sides. The whole thing from top to bottom. And even Tucker Carlson goes along with this stuff, right? He's not against that. But I am. I mean, it's not I'm against gay people being gay. I don't want to live under a gay cult, right? If you want to go do that. And but you're not going to be in charge of the government. You're not going to see. That's what I'm saying. You're not. I don't want to live in a world where they're in charge of the government and they're running the schools and they're running all the events and they're putting all the public events because it all turns into that. And so everybody has to be. So you have to be continually exposed to this stuff that you don't want to be exposed to. See, because we're the Americans and we're a race and we have a religion and we have a philosophy, and that has to do with and survival, right? The survival of the race depends on men and women falling in love, having children, building families, and so on. This is how we're going to survive. And so, my personal view is that the foundation of the United States government in Washington, D.C. in 1789 was the beginning of the end of that. Like people think that this was the beginning of a new era of what? I don't know. Look at where it went. You see, I'm saying it was the end of the Enlightenment, that the establishment of Washington, D.C. was the end of the run of the Enlightenment people in favor of this gay cult that was running out of, at the time, Rome, and also involved in these cults that became the Anti-Defamation League. They just, for some reason, so you got to understand it. Let's take it from the perspective of the Jewish mafia. Who do they want in charge of the Goyim? Okay, who would they like to have in charge of the Goyim? Somebody like Adolf Hitler that wants to take power, or would they rather have some gay guy that's into race mixing and feminism? They want that guy, and so that's the pattern that they've put out through the whole society, so that they can continue to be in charge. So at the top of this pyramid of gay cults is the Jewish mafia and the Roman Talmudic syndicate. They're on the top of this mafia. They're the top mafia because that's what they want running everything. See, they don't want strong men who want to protect the culture and survive into the future. They don't want that. Now, how damaging has it been to them personally? Quite, even though they've made trillions doing this, they're losing to Russia. They're losing to Iran. They're going to lose. You see, there's no future in that. It's a way of looting. So you're able to loot everything real fast, but then it dies. So then they're going to have to go somewhere else. And where are they going to go? I don't know. But so the whole thing has been a giant looting job. And it happened slowly because you figure Washington, D.C. was founded in 1789. But then then they had so then shortly after that, you had the Civil War, and then they got more power in Washington, D.C. over the states. So the states lost a lot of their rights, but then they brought in the cults to create a domestic problem based on racism and the Ku Klux Klan, which they used to clamp down and get rid of more rights, right? And then bring in the civil rights movement. So the civil rights replaced natural rights. See, the natural rights that come from God, those are replaced by civil rights that come from Washington, D.C., that are voted on by Africans and Jews. You see, different people than our founders. And Catholics. The Jews and the Negroes and the Catholics are going to vote on what civil rights are. So this is the beginning of replacing natural rights that come from God with civil rights that come from Washington, D.C. And then they put this system over. But the big thing was, it wasn't just the blacks and the Catholics and the Jews, but the homosexuals. So that was to become the operating model. So the operating model. So that's why all the white men that are in power, they have to either have to be Jews or homosexuals or race mixers or both, or have to be capitulating to that, right? Everyone has to capitulate to this thing that's emanating out of Washington, D.C. So like, for instance, like I'll give you an example. Let's take California. Martin Luther King, for instance, wasn't from California, had nothing to do with California, didn't build anything in California, I don't know if he ever came to California, yet we have a Martin Luther King Boulevard in California. We have a statue of Martin Luther King in, I think, Riverside or San Bernardino. Why? He had nothing to do with California. Why don't you put that in wherever he was from? I think he was from Alabama or somewhere. I don't know. I don't even know where he's from. I don't even care. I mean, he was an invention of the Republican Party. That's the way I look at it. I don't, so I'm not in favor of race mixing. I'm not in favor of slavery either. See, my group, the Enlightenment group, or the people that were in the colonies, see, my family, my grandparents were farmers. Okay. They didn't have black slaves. They did the farming themselves. Okay. And that was on my mother's side. Okay. They were farmers from Indiana. And on my father's side, my grandfather was a school teacher. Okay. So school teachers and farmers. Okay. We didn't have slaves. So I'm not for slavery and I'm not for race mixing because I don't need either. I can farm myself and I can teach myself and I can do everything myself without having slaves. Who are the people that want the slaves? The people that are in Washington, D.C. See, they just changed the slave system. That's all. They just changed it, and they enslaved the white people under that system through what they've been doing for the rest of this for the extant period of time since its establishment. So anyway, the culture and the U.S. culture is so it's alien. What I'm saying, Martin Luther King is alien to California. There's nothing in California that Martin Luther King didn't do anything. All he did was the people that followed him ruined California. California is literally a gigantic pile of trash. It really is. It was a beautiful place at one time. It was like Southern California was a beautiful wildflower meadow by the sea. And in my personal opinion, like if I had all the power in the world, I would eradicate most of the housing and industry in California, and I would return it to a wildflower meadow, surrounded by cows, and there would be cows everywhere. This is just my idea. This is my utopian idea of California. My utopian idea of California is you get rid of all these foreign interests and all this foreign industry, and you get rid of the Long Beach Harbor. You get rid of that. We don't need Chinese ships dumping garbage over here anymore. And what you have is you have a giant wildflower meadow where there's cows everywhere, and people that know how to produce that take the cow and process it, and not cows like in giant housing or in contained areas, but cows roaming all over California. The entire California valleys would just be filled with cows roaming everywhere. There'd be just millions and millions and millions and millions of cows roaming around eating grass. Cows, chickens, and pigs. Actually, there'd be pigs too. Pork is good. Cows, chickens, pigs, roaming around, eating grass. People would have gardens, and we would have a massive food supply of red meat and yogurt and cottage cheese and chicken eggs. And you'd look like there'd be like an endless supply of the highest quality. You know how strong you'd be? Let me tell you something. If you want to be strong, and you want to be healthy, and you want to be good looking, you need sun, and you need to eat everything the cow produces: the milk, the cheese, the meat, the red meat, the liver, all of it. You want to be strong, you want to be healthy, you want to be good looking. You need sun and you need nutritious food. That's what I'm saying. Instead, they're turning California into an industrial hub with all these different people, and come over here from China and build a house that costs millions of dollars and then sit in traffic on the freeway. It's like you're wasting all these resources. You're wasting all the resources. Why not just have cows? Why not get rid of all these foreigners, instead have cows everywhere? Instead of having traffic everywhere, have a city like Los Angeles surrounded by cows. Surrounded by cows, right? Those old buildings in Los Angeles are really cool. You just have a little downtown Los Angeles with all the people living there, and there's literally just have it surrounded by cows and wildflower meadows and a beach to go surfing in. What else do you need? Do you need Chinese shit shipped over here, or can you make stuff out of glass and leather and wood? And you know what I'm saying? Not only that, but we're sitting on top of a giant oil reserve. I don't know if you know that, but California is literally just a gigantic oil reserve. We don't need oil from anywhere else. And if we did, we could get it from Alaska. So I'm saying the reason why America sucks and is a horrible place to live today, why it's failing and why it's losing wars and going to continue to fail and has absolutely no future, it has zero future, is because it's run by gay cults. They run my town, and they've grown in power in the last 10 years. They run the police department. The police department in where I live is run by a gay cult. The city's run by a gay cult. They push gay stuff on kids. They push grooming kids. It's sponsored by the police department. It's sponsored by the city. They have immigrants that they use that are like, I'm from this thing and I'm now in charge. See what I mean? Like, this is the whole system that came out of Washington, D.C., which is a complete failure. And the reason I know it's a failure is because they're losing the war in Iran and they're losing the war against Russia. Russia could annihilate all of NATO right now and just take everything. They don't want to. But you see, all of our stuff since the founding of Washington, D.C. has been destroyed. England's destroyed, Scotland's destroyed, Ireland's being destroyed. How do you turn a country with all these beautiful redheaded people into a toilet, right? Where they abort the redheads and bring in people from the Middle East and Africa. That's what they're doing to Ireland, and it's run by a gay cult. See, only a gay cult would do that. Only a gay cult would think it's a good idea to abort the redheads and kill off the people and then bring people in from Africa because it's mental illness. You see, because it's mental illness, because they're insane. But while these insane people are running everything, there's another group on top that's looting everything. So they're extracting all the resources out of these nations and so they're looting it. And the front group that they use, the network that they use to loot America, Canada, Australia, England, and Europe, the group that's on top, they use a gay cult. That's who they put in power, that wants abortion and immigration and bring in the Africans and kill the native white populations in Ireland, just kill them off with abortion and then bring in, like they're doing the same thing in Ukraine. I tried to warn my Ukrainian friends of this a long time ago, before the war started. I told them, look, you don't want to side with John McCain. You don't want to side with all these and Marco Rubio and all these people in Washington, D.C. I go, if you side with them and fight the Russians, you're not going to have anything. You're not going to have a country. What you're going to have is you're going to have Jews running the government, and then they're going to bring in Africans and other foreign people to replace you. And so you're going to get pride parades. You're going to have gay pride in Kiev. Then you're going to have African and Indian and just people from Asia and the Middle East. They're going to come in and replace you and take all the jobs. That's exactly what's happening right now in Kiev. That's exactly what's happening as these stupid guys who thought they were, oh, we love Adolf Hitler, we're the Nazis. They go off to fight the Russians and die. And then for a Jewish president, Zelensky, and then they get replaced by Africans and South Asians and West Asians. And it's like, what are you doing? This is what happens when you under this system. So the whole pattern of the system is visible. It's obvious. It's like you can see what's happening. So as the interim president of America, we can have our own thing. And so I don't have to be the president of America forever. I don't even want to. I just want other people to form a society that's not a pile of garbage. And so I'm holding this office in the meantime, in the middle, in the in-between time, until we restore our civilization. And so with that, I will end off.